What's up guys, Brian Kelly here from Zombie Guitar. So here in today's video I'm going to talk about the CAGED system again. This is the third video I've made in 3 days. I actually haven't made 3 videos in 3 days in a row in a very long time. So I'm pretty proud of myself for doing that, you know. But again, we're going to be talking about the CAGED system. Now in today's video I want to explain to you why the CAGED system is actually super easy. I know, I just made those last 2 videos where I just got done telling you about how hard it is, and I'm like, CAGED is so hard, it's for advanced guitar players, it's not beginner friendly, it's super hard, blah blah blah. And I meant every word that I said. But again, it's all about the context. It's always about the context. So in those last 2 videos that I made, I was talking about CAGED as pertaining to soloing. So when it comes to soloing, CAGED is very hard. The internet will lead you to believe that it's not, though. The internet will lead you to believe that CAGED is easy and CAGED is about connecting scale patterns together and all that stuff. So here, let's do a chart. Let's get a chart on the screen right now. Okay, so when it comes to soloing, connecting scale patterns together is not that hard. You with me? It's not that bad. You use a system like the 5 pentatonic positions, you connect the scales together, you play in a key, not that bad. Not what the CAGED system is for, okay? When it comes to soloing, if you want to use the CAGED system is super hard because the CAGED system is the thing that lets you keep up with the chord changes. And the chords are changing pretty fast most of the time. So for every single chord that you're soloing over, you're going to have a different CAGED roadmap. So if there's 4 chords in the chord progression, you're going to have 4 different roadmaps to keep up with. It's hard to get your brain to do that. So when it comes to soloing, CAGED is very hard. It's not beginner friendly. That was the purpose of the last 2 videos that I made. Today's video, we're not going to be talking about CAGED in regards to soloing. We're just going to be talking about the CAGED system in general. How to use the CAGED system. What is the CAGED system for? The CAGED system is a system of chords. It allows you to play any chord anywhere on the entire neck of the guitar. And to do that, it's really not that bad. It's very easy, actually. Let's get into it. All right, so I said it 1,000 times. I'm going to say it again. CAGED has absolutely nothing to do with scale patterns. So if you are thinking that we're going to be talking about scale patterns or anything like that, just no, we're not, okay? We don't talk about that. That's nothing to do with CAGED, all right? So get that out of your head right away. That's the first step in making this all much easier. CAGED is very easy once you understand that it has nothing to do with scale patterns. What you need to know is you need to know the notes on your low E string, and you need to know the notes on your A string. If you know the notes on your D string, that's a plus, but if you don't know the notes on your D string, it's very easy to figure them out because whatever note happens to be on the low E string is going to be the same note on the D string, 2 frets higher, and then on the D string. So if this is an A here, this is an A there. If this is a B here, this is a B there. All right, so the prerequisite to knowing how to use and apply the CAGED system to play any chord anywhere on the entire neck of the guitar is for you to know the notes on your low E string and on your A string. The second thing you need to understand is that there's 5 shapes. There's 5 CAGED shapes, C shape, A, G, E, D, all right? Each of those 5 shapes is going to have a root note location. The root note location allows you to know which CAGED shape to play at the correct time, depending on where you're at the fretboard, all right? So the E shape and the G shape have their root note location on the low E string. You know your notes on the low E string already because it's the prerequisite to this CAGED lesson. So if you can find a note on the low E string, any note, it doesn't matter, you can create a chord from that root note location in the E shape or the G shape. If the root note location of the note is on the A string, you can build a chord from that root note location in the C shape or the A shape. If the root note location is on the D string, you can build a chord from that root note location in the D shape. All right? And that's the CAGED system in a nutshell. What we're going to do now is we're going to just pick a position on the fretboard. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with what key we're playing in because there's no context, there's no chord progression. We're not trying to solo. We're just picking a random position on the fretboard. What position did I pick? All right. I put my finger there. Let's kind of like spread this out. We'll give ourselves like a 6 fret region, right? So where we at? We're at 5 to, I don't know, 5 to 10. All right, so this is the position that we're going to be trying to build our chords in. Now you can play any chord, any major chord, any minor chord, any diminished chord, any augmented chord, any 7th chord, any major 7th chord, any extended chord, any type of chord you want in this position. You can do the same thing in this position. You can do the same thing in this position. It doesn't matter. You can play any chord, any type of chord, anywhere in the entire neck of the guitar. And you can do so using the CAGED system. And the way that you find these chords is by knowing your root note locations. So this is my position. So let's say I want to build like a C chord, all right? All right, I have to find the C. I have to find the note C, all right? Where am I at here? I'm between frets 5 and 10. That's my area. Okay, I have to find a C. Where's a C at? Oh, there's a C right there. 8th fret. The root note location is on the low E string. When the root note location is on the low E string, that tells me I have a G shape or an E shape available to me. So if I want to play a C chord, I can play it like this, in the E shape. Or I can play it in the G shape. Alright, it's hard to play these chords in full. You never have to play the chords in full if you don't want to. If you can't play a full G-shaped chord, just play the high 4 strings. It's fine. Or just play like the G, B, and D strings, you know? You know, just play little pieces of it. You don't have to play these in full. But yeah, that's that. Alright, so now we have this. What if I want to play, I don't know, a D chord? A D. Alright, so now in this little area, where's the note D at? Alright, I have a note D right there. Oh, right there, 10th fret. There's the note D too. So right on the edges is where I have my D notes at. Let's go with this one, the one that's on the A string. All right, so it's on the A string. Root note location is on the A string. What does that tell me? That tells me I have a C shape or an A shape available. I'll start it off by playing it in the A shape. A D major chord in the A shape. D major chord in the C shape. All right, what if I wanted to use this D here? Now it's on the low E string. The root note location is on the low E string. That tells me I have a G shape or an E shape available to me. So here's a D major chord. Here's a D major chord. Alright, you don't have to play this in full. You can just play the high 4 strings or whatever. Alright, so what if I wanted to play, I don't know, E flat chord? Alright, E flat. Find the note E flat. Where am I at? So here's my area. There's an E. One less than E is E flat. Alright, so I have an E flat. That E flat resides on the A string. That tells me I have a C shape and an A shape available to me. Alright, so I want to play an E flat major chord. I'll play it in the A shape. Or I'll play it in the C shape. And, you know, that shape, the A shape, I've been playing for 30-something years, and it's still hard for me to get this string in there and this string. Like, it's hard. I have to really contort my hands, because you don't have to play these shapes in full. You don't have to play that shape in full either. You can just play like the high 3 strings. Alright, way easier. Alright, so there's an E flat chord right here. If that's too hard to play, just play like the high 4 strings. Just play the high 3 strings. Whatever, just play pieces of it. Or here's the E flat chord here. Just play the high 3 strings. You know, just play little pieces of them. Alright, so as you can see, I just built any chord I wanted to build. Of course, it was just major chords, and we're going to talk about other chords in a second. But, you know, I was just like, okay, here's my position. If I happen to be playing in the key of A minor, everything that I just did right there would have been exactly what I just did. If I was playing in the key of E minor, everything that I just did right there would have still been exactly the same. I would have still built the chords in the exact same manner. The chords are what they are. If I was playing in the key of D minor, again, it would not have changed what I just did there. The key information is what gives you the scale patterns. All right? The scale patterns are not what CAGED is about. That's what I'm always saying. If you're trying to connect scale patterns together, then you're not using the CAGED system. If you're trying to map out chord shapes on the fretboard, then you are using the CAGED system. Now, anytime you're going to make any type of manipulation to a CAGED chord shape, you need to know more stuff other than just the CAGED system, because the CAGED system gives you very limited information. The CAGED system just gives you 5 starting major chord shapes. That's all it gives you. Now, if you want to build other chords out of those 5 starting major chord shapes, you need to know the rules of chord construction. If you want to take these CAGED chord shapes and build scales out of them, you need to know other music theory stuff, okay? The CAGED system gives you a very limited amount of information. What we're doing with it now is we're taking this limited amount of information. We're then taking the rules of chord construction, which I have a video about. If you want to check that one out, I'll link you to it. And then we're going to build other chords using CAGED plus our knowledge of the rules of chord construction. Step 1. Instead of looking at these 5 CAGED shapes as just shapes, you look at them as intervals. You have your C shape, you look at where your 1s, 3s, and 5s are. You have your A shape, you look at where your 1s, 3s, and 5s are. All 5 shapes, that's where the 1s, 3s, and 5s are always going to be. Those shapes can be moved around anywhere you want, because that's how the guitar works. Everything's movable. But as long as you're playing a C shape, No matter where you happen to be playing that C shape at, the 1, 3, and 5 location is always going to be exactly as what you see here. So memorize these 5 shapes, memorize these 5 shapes as their intervals, do this one time, and you only have to do that one time. Once you do it once, once you get it locked into your brain, then it's in there. All right? And that's how we build other chords. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to build minor chords. So what is a minor chord? A major chord is a 1, 3, 5. A minor chord is a 1, flat 3, 5. So you can take any of these major chords and then convert it into a minor chord just by lowering the third. All right, so we're just going to stay in the same position here, just random position that I'm just building chords in. I could do the same thing here. I could do the same thing here. It doesn't matter where I'm at the fretboard. This is just my random position. So I'm just going to build some random chords. I want to build a B flat chord, all right? B flat minor chord. First step, I have to find a B flat note. Where's a B flat note? Here's a B flat note right there, 6th fret. I also have a B flat note up there because you can 2 frets higher, skip a string, have a B flat note on the D string. All right, so we'll start here. It's on the low E string. That tells me that I have an E shape and a G shape available to me. All right, so here's a B flat major chord in the E shape. Here's a B flat major chord in the G shape. All right, let's start with the E shape. Look at it as intervals, 1s, 3s, and 5s. This particular shape, the E shape, only has one instance of the 3. That's always going to be true for the E shape. All right, so the E shape has a third, one instance. Take that third, you lower it by a half step to make it a flat third. That can be accomplished by lifting your finger up, your middle finger up. Now I'm playing a B flat minor chord. So I took the CAGED shape, I took the rules of chord construction, and I used those rules of chord construction to manipulate the major chord shape into another type of chord. Let's do the same thing with the B flat in the G shape. So here's a G shape. Again, you don't have to play these shapes in full. If I try to play this in full, let's see if I can do it. It's pretty hard. Much easier when you don't play the shape in full. But again, I just have to identify where my thirds are at because lowering those thirds is going to be what allows me to make minor chords. Here's a 1, here's a 3. Becomes a flat 3 now. So here's a 1, flat 3, 5, 1. There's a 3. So flat 3. So you have your G shape now converted into a minor chord. And since you don't have to play these shapes in full, you can just play little pieces of them. So I'll just play like this. This is a B flat minor chord. All right, and then or I could just play something like that's a B flat minor chord. Take pieces of your minor chord structure. Any combination of 1, flat 3, and 5 is going to give you a minor chord. All right, so in this area, we also had that B flat note on the D string as well because this is our area here. So we found the B flat note here, which resided on the low E string, which gave us our G shape and our E shape. We also have a B flat note here on the D string. So anytime your root note location is on the D string, you know you have a D shape available to you. So let's play a B flat major chord in the D shape. Again, playing the full shape. This is not an easy shape to play. I usually just play the high 3 strings. Sounds just as good. It's way easier to play, you know. But again, we're trying to play a B flat minor chord now. So first you look at this as its intervals. You got a 1, you got a 5, you got a 1, you got a 3. The D shape has one instance of a 3 in it. Lower the third by half step to make it a flat third. So you have a 1, you have a 5, you have a 1, and you have a flat 3. That's not too bad. That's a B flat minor chord right there. All right, see how that came right from the D shape there? So, yeah, so that's minor chords. You just take your CAGED shape, lower the third, you're done. Now you have minor chords. Let's just do one other type of chord, all right? Because this video is not really so much about the rules of chord construction. I actually did another video. It's called Playing Really Complex Chord Progressions Using the CAGED System. I'll put a link to that one too. That's where we do exactly what we're talking about here, but then we build like some really complex extended chords and stuff like that. So check that video out too. So yeah, well, let's just say we want to play like, I don't know, a dominant 7th chord. So a dominant 7th chord is a 4-note chord. The chord formula for that is 1, 3, 5, flat 7. All right. So knowing the rules of chord construction, you would know that a flat 7 is always going to be found one whole step below the 1. So anywhere you have a 1, you're going to find that flat 7 interval, that 4th interval. Previously we were working with 3-note chords, now we're working with a 4-note chord. Now you're going to find that 4th interval, that flat 7, one whole step below the 1. All right, so let's say that within our little area here that we're choosing to play in, this arbitrary area that we chose, which could have just as easily been this area or this area or this area or this area. We just chose this as our arbitrary area to build chords in. Let's say that we want to build, I don't know, F dominant 7 chord. All right, F dominant 7. So the first thing we need to do is we need to find the note F. All right, so in our area we have one instance of the note F right there, 8th fret of the A string, because it's on the A string that tells us that we have a C shape and an A shape available to us. All right, so playing an F major chord in the C shape, playing an F major chord in the A shape. Well, I actually did it. I got all the notes in there. Pretty cool. I didn't have to do that. I could actually, sometimes it works, you know. But yeah, so now we're trying to play dominant 7th chords. So we need to fit in one additional note. We need to fit in that flat 7 note. So I'm actually going to start out by using this shape because it's easier to do with this shape, and then we'll move on to the other shape. So here's your 1, here's your 5, here's your 1, here's your 3, here's your 5. Anywhere you have a 1, you know that you're one whole step lower than that is going to be your flat 7. All right, so I'm going to keep this one where it's at, but this one up here, that's the one I'm going to add the flat 7 to. So I'm actually going to remove this one and add that flat 7 in there. I'm going to do that by, instead of using my 3rd finger to bar all the strings, I'm now going to just take my 3rd finger and 4th finger, and then I'm going to use my 1st finger to bar here. All right, you've probably seen that shape before, but that's an F dominant 7th chord coming from the A shape. All right, so it started out with this A shape here, and then I just did some manipulations to it by using the rules of chord construction to turn it into an F dominant 7th chord. Let's do the same thing to the C shape. So again, we're starting with our F major chord. You have your intervals, your 1, 3, 5, 1, 3. Anywhere you have a 1, your flat 7 is going to be found one whole step lower than that. All right, so I have a 1 here, and I have a 1 up here. I'm just going to go with the 1 up here, all right? And one whole step lower than that is going to be where that flat 7 is. So here's the 1, here's the flat 7. And I'm just going to play just these high 3 strings. This is an F dominant 7 here. This is an F dominant 7 here. Now you may be asking yourself, hey, that doesn't have 4 notes. What's up with that? Again, understanding the rules of chord construction will allow you to do all of these manipulations. One of the rules of chord construction is that you can always drop the root if you need to. Another rule of chord construction is you can always drop the 5th if you need to. There's a bunch of rules of chord construction about which extensions you can drop, which extensions you need to keep, and all that stuff. That's all explained in that other video. Alright, so that's going to do it for this video. So as you can see, when you're just using the CAGED system to build chords without worrying about soloing at all, it's not that bad. It's really not that hard. Just know your root note location, find the nearest available shapes based on that root note location, and then build your chord. Major chords aren't too bad, minor chords aren't too bad. When you get into some of these more complex chords, 4-note chords, 5-note chords, 6-note chords, then it starts getting a little bit more difficult, and that's why you need to have an understanding of the rules of chord construction. But a lot of people are only going to be worried about major chords and minor chords. I know myself, I'm pretty much only playing major chords and minor chords most of the time. I'll play some dominant 7th chords here and there. I'll play some diminished chords here and there. I'll play some major 7th chords here and there, you know, but most of it is major chords and minor chords, you know. So, you know, that's the CAGED system for the bulk of what you're going to be using is actually pretty easy. But when it comes to soloing, then the CAGED system is really hard. And hopefully you can understand why. Because when it comes to soloing, number one, you have to map out the scale patterns, which is not what the CAGED system is about. That's based on the key. So knowing what key you're in gives you your scale and scale patterns to map out across the fretboard, but those remain constant. That's why they're not that hard. That's why once you map out your scale patterns, it's not that hard to be like, oh, okay, all right, nothing's moving on you. It's just remaining constant the whole time. But when it comes to this CAGED stuff, which is for keeping up with the chord changes, you may be soloing over a chord progression that has 4 chords in it, and those 4 chords may be changing every bar. So you have a CAGED roadmap to follow for the first chord, and then once the chord changes, you have a new roadmap to follow. And then once the chord changes, you have a new roadmap to follow. And then the chord changes again, then you have a 4th roadmap to follow. All while simultaneously trying to maintain the knowledge of what key you're in, which remains constant the whole time. You know, so it's a lot to take in when it comes to soloing. And that's why I say it's super hard and it's not beginner friendly for that. but just building chords like we did today, not that bad. So that's my video. Thanks for watching. Check out my website, zombieguitar.com. Have a good one.